PFK, and I'm also on the Technical Advisory Committee, and I run a small group of volunteers in the Birkenhead War Memorial Park here in Kaipātiki. So PFK, well, there's our vision, having an area where birds and other native wildlife flourish and everyone works together to support our natural heritage. Yeah, I think 2026 is a bit of an aspirational target at the moment. We started in 2017. PFK sort of grew out of the Kaipātiki Restoration Network. We're an incorporated society and a registered charity. So we have the board, we have paid staff, and they're supported by the Engagement and Project Implementation Committee, or EPIC as we call it, the Executive Committee, and the Technical Advisory Committee. We currently have 40 restoration groups that sort of come under our umbrella, and these restoration groups can be anything from a household that backs onto a reserve and they go out and do a bit of weeding, or it could be a quite well established group that's also a society, and they've got quite a good network working around their group. Currently we have 7 part-time staff and 1 full-time staff member, and that's an equivalent of about 4.5 full-time staff. We've just employed quite a few just recently, which has been great. In the 3 years, we've built up a good network of supporters and partners. Our main contributors are Auckland Council, Kaipātiki Local Board, and Birkenhead Licensing Trust. Last year we signed a MOU with the Kaipātiki Local Board, and we collaborate with a lot of other restoration groups like North Shore Forest and Bird, Kaipātiki Project, Restore Hibiscus and Bays, Carrier Rescue, and hopefully we can add Pest-Free Waitakere Rangers Alliance to that as well. Our campaigns that we have going currently, we've got quite a few that we've got running. We've got Pest-Free halos, so these are set up around reserves that have carry dieback or have carry present, and because of the carry dieback, it's curtailed the pest control that we can do. So we've had households that back onto reserves. We've set up halos around the reserves, and these households can have traps for free if they download the EcoTrack app and use that to record the number of rats caught. We've got quite a bit of work happening around carry dieback. A lot of our reserves have carry in them, and we've had to shut down tracks temporarily. So we've got someone working with our groups to do training. So if they need to go into the reserves, they're well aware of how to act around carry dieback and prevent the spread of carry dieback, and also doing education to the public, and liaising with the Auckland Council carry dieback team and getting the tracks upgraded and reopened. We have a lot going on against pest plants. We have a yearly wanted poster that comes out with quite a bit of publicity about particular types of weeds. Last year was moth plant, tobacco weed, and I think it was tree privet last year. We also have moth plant task force, which is a group of people who go around once a week, targeting moth plant, pulling them out and removing pods. Last year, that team removed 7,800 pods, and they're doing another good job this year. Around predators, some of our reserves have volunteers who go through trapping, so PFK have helped set up trapping lines, done training on how to use the traps or baits with traps and bait stations for rats. And PFK GPS is the location of the traps, and then the volunteers do the baiting through the 4 pulses that we have, and upload their results into NZ Trap, mostly NZ Trap, which we're using at the moment. We're concentrating on getting corporates and businesses on board. Mainly this is corporations or businesses who come through and do a half a day or a day weeding or planting, something like that. We've also have developed a relationship with Naylor Love, a construction company, and they've been great in providing us with materials and design input and for us to build a shed. Pest-Free schools, so we go into the schools and not just talking to the students and the pupils, but also training the teachers on restoration techniques and things, and talking to the caretakers and giving training to the caretakers so they can identify weeds, know how to trap rats and bait for rats and things like that, because a lot of the schools in Kaipātiki actually back onto bush reserves, or their students walk through the reserves to get to school. We have quite an extensive citizen science campaign, which I'll touch on a bit more later, and also we've increased our social media and marketing, so getting online and getting our message out that way. And in planning, which we have coming up, is our pest plant buffer scheme, which I'll expand on at the end if I've got time, and greening of Kaipātiki. So they're the two big projects that we're working on at the moment. So just some key results that we can skite about. So for this financial year up to February 2020, we've got nearly 1,000 volunteers working, doing weeding, planting, predator control, carry dieback work, volunteer working on the board and in committees. And that equates to 16,000 volunteer hours. That's probably underreported. We've done a lot of work in trying to get accurate number of hours as possible. And then we've got 27 reserves with active pest control. And that's, that, to give you an example of what that entails, that's about 728 rat traps and bait stations, covering over 3.5 million square metres of reserve, and 51 possum traps over about 500,000 square metres of reserve, so that's quite a good result there. And we've got 3 ecological halos established, which involves about 210 houses, and we're have other halos online. We're getting ready to move soon too. So just to give you an overview of what we're planning to do this year and moving into next year. Just see our wanted poster up there in the top right hand corner, and it was moth plant, woolly nightshade and wild ginger that we targeted last year. So yeah, we want to increase our community engagement using the citizen science, increase our volunteer numbers, and increase the number of volunteer groups, and have an increased engagement with schools, with the goal for having an increase in enhanced native biodiversity. How we do this, one of our best ways of engaging with the public is our citizen science campaign, which was last year. We had a day of workshops, which we had 95 volunteers turned up, and many of those were people who hadn't been to any of our presentations or been actively involved with PFK before. And in that part of that campaign, the cornerstone of that campaign is our chew cards monitoring. So last year we had over 800 chew cards put out by the volunteers over the 3-day period through our reserves. So and then they put them out, and then 3 days later brought them back in again, and these were passed on to REMU, the Auckland Council research unit, and they analysed it and was able to report back our, not incidents, the prominence of pests, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. We showed people how to do bird counts, how to set up a bird count and how to do them. We talked about assessing water health and how people can get involved in that. We spent time identifying weeds and giving tools to them to the people to use to help identify weeds, like iNaturalist and that. And also showed like how to set up photo points in your reserve, so you can get a constant record of what's been happening over the years. We had a couple of competitions going. One of them was there was a prize for the first person to take a photograph and upload a picture of a kaka, North Island tomtit, a New Zealand falcon or New Zealand bat. And last year we had people uploading photographs of kaka and falcon seen in the Kaipātiki area. And just a couple of weeks ago in Bayview, on their Facebook page, someone uploaded a photograph of a tomtit in their backyard, which is great. No photos of bats yet, which would be a bit hard, but there has been reports of them in Kaipātiki over the last few years. With our schools, Pest-Free schools, we've got 14 schools involved at the moment, and we have 7 active projects with those schools. So it's doing monitoring, predator and weed control and planting. We have our tool shed, which is a great way of engaging with volunteers. So this is our storage shed that's open every other weekend for a couple of hours on a Saturday, and it's where volunteers can come to pick up more bait, get more herbicide gel, pick up traps, borrow tools for weeding like loppers and sickles and things like that. And it's a great way of engaging one-on-one with people, and it's proven to be very very popular. As I said, we're continuing to roll out our enhanced halos, and we're growing our social media as well. I mean, to give you an idea, this, say up to the February this year, with the social media, we've had about over 88,000 hits on Facebook and Instagram. We've had 3,000 website visits, and we've had over 6,000 reads of our monthly newsletters.
Thanks very much, Stuart.
Oh,
we're wanting to leave some time for questions.
Yep.
So could you wrap up in the next minute or so?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we try and make ourselves quite visible. As I say, we've got banners and pop-ups and things. And then yeah, our next big project that we're quite excited about is the hang on, I'm just going to get notes. It's the Regional Pest Management Plan buffer program. Imogen sort of touched on this, and so we're being contracted to engage and educate like Kaipātiki and focus on these buffers, focusing on the moth plant, woolly nightshade, wild ginger, climbing asparagus, bushy asparagus. And we're going to have hit squads going out there to get these 6 pest weeds, and doing survey work so we know where the weeds are, what the weeds are, and have a base line to work to. And follow-up visits through there as well. So that's my presentation. Hopefully it was very understandable. It was very hard to do without having any feedback or seeing anyone.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Stuart. The first question that I have is, was a legal structure seen as vital for Pest-Free Kaipātiki rather than your remaining relatively formal? This from Robert Wolf. Yeah, it was, especially when you're starting to have contractors and employees and things like this, and just having an overview of the responsibility the board has
So yeah, I think it's quite important.
Okay, and Juliet asks about how you've linked getting a free trap to EcoTrack use. That is, they're signing up to a database. And actually, the question for me is, do you think we could do it? So Juliet and I are at Pest-Free Piha. It's always a challenge, you know, as to whether you should make free traps available or whether you subsidise them so that the people who get the trap have some investment in. Have you got a view about how that's worked at Kaipātiki?
Well, to begin with, we were selling them and having it subsidised, and there wasn't much of an uptake. And also, there's a question around who owned that trap. So when people left, they took the trap with them, or does it stay with the property? I think with our halos, I mean that we had coordinators set up, and there was a lot of door knocking there, and so you talk to people at their doorstep, and then you're giving them a trap, and then you're with them helping them download the app, setting the app up. And I think the information that we're getting from them using that app is very important, and it was just an incentive for getting those traps. Didn't have too much to do with the whole thing. I'm not quite sure how it would work with you guys being more spread out.
Yeah, and another question from Kerry. Were your citizen science campaigns focused in parks, reserves, or on backyards?
Well, last year, the actual campaign we did in one of the schools, Kerry Park School, which backed onto a reserve, so they had access to that reserve, and it was a good place. We had the facilities there to bring everybody together. In the previous years, especially around the chew cards, we've just set up in a hall and had people come to a hall and talk to them and distribute all the chew cards, and done the training all inside, and that seemed to work quite well. If people, the volunteers, if they were first-time volunteers, we tried to do workshops outside in a reserve, so they can actually see, you know, the correct way to place a card and all that. Right.
Well, there's lots of very positive comments coming up. I'll just have one last question here from Wayne McKenzie, who says, can you describe more about how the community weed bins were managed? And then I'll pass back to Michelle for the groups.
Yes, so we had several sites that we had flexi bins placed, and with signage around them saying what could and could not be put in there. And we did a lot of messaging on our social media about where they were and what can be put in them and that. And we had just people keeping an eye on the bins. From what I understand, they weren't abused too much. I don't think we had any real issues of unwanted items being put in those bins. And yeah, once they were filled, we removed them and put new bins in there, and it's worked pretty well.
And do those bins go to safe landfill or to green waste, bearing in mind Kaurī issues?
I'm pretty sure they would have gone to just general waste, because there would have been bagged moth plant pods and things like that, and they can't go to green waste.
All right, thanks very much. Well, look, we're running a little bit over time, so thank you very much for your presentation. The number of comments makes it clear that everybody's really enjoyed it. And I'll pass back now to Michelle, who's going to introduce the groups.